Recently, in order to help with my chronic fatigue, I've been told to lay down and be completely still for 10 minutes a day with zero stimulus. So this doesn't mean laying down and watching videos on YouTube, and it doesn't mean laying down and listening to music or an audiobook. It means laying down with only your own thoughts for company for 10 minutes. The idea behind this is that even looking at the light on your phone or hearing and following a piece of music is a form of concentration, which involves expending energy, and this 10-minute period is supposed to be a period of complete rest where I am given a chance to rejuvenate. Rather worryingly, I found the concept of not having any stimulus very difficult at first. I assumed that I was going to get very bored, so for the first few attempts I cheated and listened to an audiobook during my 10 minutes rest. But after resting with the audiobook for a bit, I reflected on how bizarre the situation I found myself in was. I was completely incapable of even entertaining the idea of laying still for 10 minutes with no technology. Having no form of technology to entertain me for 10 minutes in my day really should not be an issue, yet here I was knowingly disobeying my doctor's advice and potentially sabotaging my own goal of recovery. How on earth had I got to this position? My dependence on technology certainly hasn't always been like this. As a child, my family would often go on long car journeys to see my grandparents or other relatives, and I would have no technology other than the radio to keep me entertained. And even then, my parents would probably be listening to like Radio 4, which wasn't exactly child friendly. Yet, I was able to entertain myself by just using my imagination back then. I was relatively comfortable being alone in my own head. But now, at the age of 23, the first thing I do when I wake up is go on my phone. And the last thing I do before I go to bed is go on my phone. I'm a university student during COVID times, so an average day is mostly spent at my desk using technology to do work. And in between periods of work, I'll have breaks where I will sit mindlessly on my phone watching YouTube videos. Every day I try to go on a walk, and during that walk I'll be listening to music or a podcast on my phone. Once I've done uni work, I'll put my laptop down and go downstairs for dinner, and then I'll watch TV for a bit. But eventually I'll go back upstairs and go back on my phone before I go to bed. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say I'm quite literally a cyborg. During this pandemic, every expression of the authentic person that I feel I am has been filtered through a form of technology. I am a friend to people, yet the vast majority of my interactions with my friends have been filtered through a Facebook group chat or a Zoom call. I am a university student, but I have never met most of my lecturers. In fact, I've never met most of the fellow students. All our interactions have been filtered through technology. I am someone who loves music, but my only opportunity to listen to music is filtered through technology. I'm sure you're beginning to see the pattern emerging here. The point I'm making is that so much of my identity is being influenced by the technology I use, it's difficult to draw the line between what is actually me and what is just technology. All the social media platforms and Google use algorithms that influence what it is I see on the internet, but those are based around my search history and the things that I click on. So in a way, they're just extensions of thoughts that I already have. But I often find myself asking, do I control the algorithm or does it control me? Are the opinions that I hold actually authentically mine, or have they just been placed there by the algorithm? Maybe I should accept the algorithm is me, and the separation between the being I call the chronic fatty and my online presence is arbitrary. My algorithm is part of me, and therefore I am a cyborg. A common problem in philosophy that appears to have always existed is the distinction between body and mind. A dualist would argue that there's a distinction between the two, and a monist would argue that the body and mind aren't two separate things, but constitute one bigger structure, which is you. It seems now that we might have to start entertaining the idea that there's actually three different categories: mind, body, and internet algorithm. But Mr. Fatty, I hear you cry, who really cares? Clearly your dependence on technology shows how much you value it. If it was not bringing some benefit to your life, then you wouldn't be using it all the time. You becoming a cyborg was a decision you made about the value of technology. This is undeniable. Technology has undoubtedly benefited my life in an incredible way. I'm not going to sit here and try to persuade you to join my hippie cult, where we all move to Guyana and reject all modern living. But I am going to argue that we should be more aware of the negative side effects of the saturation of our own identities with technology. And I think my incapability of lying down for 10 minutes with zero stimulus is an example of this. So let's run with the idea of me being a cyborg for a bit. That would mean that my online presence is actually part of the being I call the chronic fatty, and therefore my online interactions have an influence on who I am away from the internet. We all know that you don't put your real life on social media. We often will put idealised versions of our lives by only uploading pictures of us on social occasions or holidays where we are wearing our best clothes and having the most fun. Obviously, we don't want to upload photos of us looking our worst and being miserable, but part of this is influenced by the platforms we choose to upload to. A lot of our decisions about what we will upload is dictated by the amount of likes we think we'll get. Each like is a pleasant little dopamine rush of approval. It feels like a nice pat on the back from our peers. And if the person who likes our picture is someone we think is cool, that dopamine rush can be enough to brighten up our whole day. But the dopamine rush might be more dangerous than we think. The power of immediate gratification means that we might get a little foggy-headed about the long-term consequences of this behaviour. Just like someone with any other form of addiction, we can become a slave to this feeling. Ask yourself this: have you ever been to a concert and found yourself filming it just to put it on your Snapchat or Instagram story? Have you ever taken a photo with your friends with the sole purpose of it being taken to upload to social media? I think often we get caught between the real phenomenal world and the social media world, and we can sacrifice in the moment enjoyment in order for that dopamine rush we know we'll get when we upload things to social media. The power of that dopamine rush encourages us to be narcissistic. We're encouraged to be focused on how attractive we are or how funny we are, and we are given a literal numerical gauge on how successful we are for meeting those ends through likes. We're also encouraged to make people feel jealous. We're constantly trying to boast about how great our lives are. We're all guilty of this. I know that I have specifically posted things on my Snapchat story to make people jealous about the concert or party I was at, and I've checked how many people have viewed the story every few hours to see if anyone cool had seen it. This kind of behaviour wouldn't be acceptable in the real world. This kind of blatant narcissism and ego-fueled boasting would get laughed at. But if my hypothesis that I'm a cyborg is correct, then that behaviour is just as authentically me than actions in the phenomenal world. It seems that the social media algorithms therefore encourage you to be a narcissistic egomaniac. There is a German social psychologist called Erich Fromm who wrote in the mid to late 20th century. Fromm argued that we can experience the world through two ways of being. One is called the having mode, and one is called the being mode. Both modes share the same goal: happiness and fulfillment. However, they have opposing views on how to reach this objective. When in the having mode, a person will try to achieve happiness by accumulating material things that they can have for their possession. For example, a goal for somebody in this mode might be to get a job that pays well enough for them to be able to afford a fancy car. Their hypothesis for self-improvement is effectively, I need a job in order to buy a thing, and this thing will be a mark of my success. However, somebody in the being mode focuses more on who they are as a person and their relationships to other people. A goal of somebody in this mode might be to be a good son or daughter by expressing their gratitude and love to their parents. Their hypothesis for living a fulfilled life is about focusing on the relationships with people they love and how this love can create a stable identity for themselves. The person in the having mode defines themselves based on the things that they have, and the person in the being mode defines themselves based on who they feel they are. Central to Fromm's argument is that modern culture encourages us to be in the having mode. Instead of focusing on who we are and our relationships to other people, we see the world as a series of things that we can have. Something like a forest can have no meaning to us other than a source of wood that can make things that we can have, like paper or furniture. Even something like sex is no longer defined by two people coming together in love. Instead, the other person is merely a body that we are using for a purpose, and once it has fulfilled its purpose, it no longer has any use to us, and we will never text that body back. I think my dependence on technology is pushing me further and further into the having mode. I'm spending an increasing amount of my life filtered through my internet algorithm, and when experiencing things through the algorithm, I see what it presents to me only as potential satisfiers for the dopamine rush that I crave. The photo on my Instagram of my family Christmas no longer represents the memory of loved ones coming together, it becomes an object which potentially can lead to my real goal, accumulating likes. The music that I love listening to no longer is an immersive experience, It's something I put on in the background to fill the silence that would otherwise be there when I'm going on a walk. The music itself is only as good as its ability to meet its purpose, as a filler of time. My experience of day-to-day life is essentially broken into two different categories. There are times where I have to do work, which I perceive as a series of tasks that need completing, and then there are times where I have no obligations, and here I aim to entertain myself with technology. I've managed to objectify my own experience of time. I experience time as a thing. In order to make the most of that thing, I have to fill it with some activity. Purely experiencing time without any form of stimulation seems so alien to me that 10 minutes of empty time is a daunting challenge. I am so deep in the having mode, I've forgotten how to be. My doctor has literally asked me to just be for 10 minutes a day, and I can't do it. If I'm not using my time for some purpose, or filling it with a thing, then I'm completely lost. It seems the chronic fatty in the phenomenal real world no longer exists, and the dopamine addicted, thing craving, internet algorithm chronic fatty has taken its place. I am just a consumer of content. Whether it's YouTube videos, TV, Instagram, music, audiobooks, my life is defined by these consumptions, because when I aim to be alone with the person in my head, who isn't being fed what to think by the algorithm, I can't follow through. I am a cyborg, and you probably are too. And I think I'm making this video just to encourage people to really think about who they are. How many of your opinions are truly your own, and how many have been fed to you by your algorithm? How much time do you spend a day being whoever you truly are, having thoughts and experiences which aren't influenced through some form of technology? Is your dependence on technology stopping you from being the person you know you could be? These are all questions that we're going to have to ask ourselves in the future. And if you're unhappy with any of your answers, maybe reversing them won't be as hard as you think. Merely by being aware of your dependence means you're in a good position to change it. And hopefully, we can all remember what it's like to just be.